May we see all as it is, and may it all be as we see it. May we be the ones to make it as it should be. For if not us, who? If not now, when? This is answering the cry of justice with the work of peace. This is redeeming the pain of history with the grace of wisdom. This is the work we are called to do, and this is the call we answer now, to be the barrier and the bridge, to be the living embodiment of our principles, to be about the work of building the beloved community, to be a people of intention and a people of conscience.
This week, I visited one of our longtime beloved members of the congregation, Thelma Spencer, who told me a story about welcome. She reminded me of the times when it was members of the board who stood in this pulpit to welcome all of you to this place that we make sacred when we come together. And when she, as a member of the board, stood up before this gathered community, she held this pulpit with such grace and dignity and ferocity, and she said, "Welcome. Welcome to this place. No matter how broken down and ramshackle you are, welcome to this place." And when she tells that story, she remembers the voice of Jack Edmondson, who was also one of our founding members who we lost this week. Jack Edmondson, laughing so hard he cried. Welcome to this place. No matter how broken down and ramshackle you are, no matter how much faith or fear you carry with you into these literal or virtual doors, welcome to this place, which is indeed made sacred by our coming together, by our laughter and by our tears. If this is your first place here at River Road online in our community, please reach out so that we can help to connect you more deeply into the life of the congregation. If it is your 50th year at River Road, know that all of you remains as welcome today as it has always been. In this month, we turn our attention, our focus, and our perception toward the theme of what it means to live intentionally. And today's prophetic voices, a story shared by a prophet and a friend and a musician and a storyteller dear to us, Leah Morris, reminds us what it might mean to free ourselves from the limits of our own perception, to be liberated by the smallness of what we are willing to hear, to see, to perceive, and to hold in our hearts. A gift from Leah Morris, The Cricket and the Coin.
Let me tell you about the cricket and the coin. One day, a pair of cousins were taking a walk down a busy city street. Now, one of the cousins was what you would call a city slicker, someone who lived in and was used to the urban lifestyle. The other cousin was what some people refer to as a country bumpkin, someone who was more accustomed to the rural countryside way of living. But on this day, they found themselves together in a city. And as they were walking, if you've ever been in a city, you know the sounds, the sights, the impressions that are constantly bombarding the senses. It's a loud and exciting place to be. Horns blaring, people shouting, construction taking place. And amidst all of that bustle, the country cousin said, "Is that? Ha! Do you hear that? A cricket." The city cousin said, "No, cuz, no way. Listen, there's no way there are any crickets anywhere within a 20-mile radius of here. And even if there were, there's no way you could hear it over all the noise." The country cousin said, No, I hear it. There's definitely a cricket." And wouldn't you know, within a minute of continuing their walk, they found one of the few plants that was growing in the city, and there on its leaf was a little cricket singing its song. The city cousin was admittedly impressed and said, "Wow, this just goes to show you country people have great sense of hearing." But the country cousin wasn't so convinced. As a matter of fact, they thought it would be a good idea to launch an experiment to find out if it was really a matter of country people having better hearing. And so they pulled their change purse out and dropped a few coins on the sidewalk. The heads of every passerby turned toward the sound of the fallen coins. This story illustrates that we are more likely to notice things that we're used to noticing. So it's a good idea to pay attention to where we pay attention, to focus our intention and choose where we place our focus. And this story inspired this song. Are you listening to the falling leaves? Are you listening to the calling trees? Are you listening? What do you hear? Are you listening to the water dry? Are you listening to the lizards fly? Are you listening? What do you hear? What do you hear? I hear days come and go, and I hear babies growing. I hear clouds as they silently float by. I hear time as it's slowing, and one thing I know is I hear life. I hear life. Are you listening to the new day song, or a voice that tells you that everything is wrong? Are you listening? What do you hear? to the love within, to the well where every good thing begins. Are you listening? What do you hear? What do you hear? I hear ideas sprouting, a child within me shouting, here's a new thing. You ought to give it a try. I hear vision becoming. I know that nothing is wanted. I hear life. I hear life. I hear life. I hear life.
Being in community, first and foremost, means paying attention. Paying attention to each other's lives, to each other's victories, to each other's joys and sorrows and losses. Paying attention to the wave that crashes over our community as a whole and the waves that crash over our individual lives. Being in community means paying attention and holding it all. Today, we hold more great loss in our community while simultaneously holding the great love and celebration of generations in this place and beyond it. Again, we remember Jack Edmondson, who passed earlier in the month. His obituary ran in the Washington Post just this week, and we are reminded of what it meant for him to live and to serve and to laugh and to love among us and in the world. We also grieve the passing of another longtime member, Bob Pelican, just this week. His wife, Helen, was one of the founding members of this congregation. She and he, together, created what now sustains our spiritual lives, the very framework of our community held in the hands of willing people who pass with great love and deep intention. This week also brings Holocaust Remembrance Day, when we hold the fact that remembering is holy work. We remember, not just so that horrors may never be replicated, but so that lives might be uplifted, so that we might know that each and every life is sacred and precious, not only to all that is holy, but to every faltering moment that we live upon this earth. And so in this time of joys and of concerns, as we stretch the limits of our perception to hold even more of each other's stories, we begin the work of joys and concerns with the simple and faithful act of remembering and never forgetting.
I now invite you into a place and a space of silence, of rootedness, a time of meditation and a time of prayer. Closing your eyes, lowering your gaze, rooting deep down into just where you are right now. Breathing in and out, sensing that aliveness within ourselves, that connection to one another, even through the confines of isolation, even through the act of social distancing and virtual worship, reaching out our hearts and extending our energy. Here we are. We've arrived yet again to another Sunday, another point of connection, another point of contact. Yes, with each other. Yes, with the divine. But we reach within and we contact and we connect with ourselves. That part of us that keeps showing up, that keeps being present, that reaches out for the hand of the other, that part of ourselves that chooses hope. We seek the spirit of life and the spirit of love. And yes, we are listening. We pay attention to those spaces in which we are so valued and so loved and so held. We make space in our heart for that connection. We move with intention and purpose. But oh, great Spirit of life, we know that we don't always have that in us. We know that there are times when we feel disconnected and uprooted, where we feel detached or isolated or alone. And we know that even in those moments, we are still valued, we are still loved, we are still safe. When we come together in community, we show up for each other in those times. On our minds continue to be those who are struggling with all of the variants of COVID-19, the disruption that has brought into our lives, having to start again and again and again and try something new, try to be safe, try to protect each other, the struggle within that. Our hearts are lifted to those who have lost again and again, those struggling with isolation, those dealing with the impact of a hard economic system. We may not always know the way forward, but we know that we are going forward together. So we hold that knowing in our hearts this morning. And we choose hope. And we are listening. And we are present. And we are here. May it be so. Ashe. And blessed be.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
everything we do together, all the words we say and efforts we make, it's all an expression of who it is we want to be, individually and collectively. And here at River Road, there's so much to be gained by going one step deeper beyond the celebration and connection of the Sunday service into different forms of service that call us to work in a unified way to bring about a vision that we can only hold in community. There's so much happening in the life of the congregation that invites you both to participate and to lead. Today, our Contemporary Issues Forum, still up and running strong as ever, brings the amazing Sam Worthington, the CEO of Interaction, helping us to reflect on what it means to not continue to glance away from the humanitarian crises all around us in this world. We're also honored to be sharing on February 13th and beyond a visioning process led by members of our own board right here at River Road, asking what is it we as a community are called to be, not just in the coming months, but in the coming years. We'll celebrate and participate in that visioning process in the service here on February 13th and also in small groups throughout the coming month or two. I hope that you will participate. Make the choice to be here in that online community and stay for the small group conversations afterwards, because everything we are becoming because we choose to make it so. It is the season that we begin to think about and talk about our financial stewardship for the coming congregational year. Yes, we on your administrative and finance team are hard at work on drafts of the proposed budget for the coming fiscal year, and you will start to receive information about the very early stages of our stewardship campaign in the coming week. We won't kick off the campaign until much later in February, but it is not too early to at least be curious about the ways in which you might give to what you value most in this world and in your home and in your community. And finally, if you are new here or feeling new, if you'd like to find out more about Unitarian Universalism and about this congregation itself, Beginning and Belonging is a joint online offering from Cedar Lane, UU Congregation, Fairfax Unitarian Church, and ourselves, in which you can dive more deeply into what this faith means and what it can mean for your life. You can sign up through our e-weekly links, and we hope you will join us as you are willing and able. It is a deep and abiding honor to be a leader in this place. Not simply a receiver of the vision and the gifts of those who have gone before, but one who helps to shape the vision and the gifts that will be received by those who come after us. And this morning we are blessed to have a short video, a reminder of the ways in which we can lead and serve from our leadership and nominations team right here at River Road.
Answering the call to serve on the board is my way of saying yes. Yes to being of service. Yes to being a part of a community of members who are committed to ensuring life at River Road is safe, secure, that resources are in place to meet our social and spiritual needs. And yes to working with others to ensure we are guided by a vision and shared values. Board of Trustees excellence, dedicated leadership, and transparency don't happen organically. It happens here, though, year after year, because our board has a culture of honesty, transparency, a strong work ethic, and a solution-focused team approach. Year after year after year, the board brings that focus to bear. Whether it was building the pathway from the pavilion to the street, or adopting the 8th principle, or working to install solar panels, I experience awe-inspiring leadership, thoughtful discussions, debates, cross-group coordination, listening, weighing, deliberating, always with a guiding star of living the values we share. I invite you to consider serving on the board. My time has been both rewarding in personal and spiritual ways. I am privileged to be working alongside a remarkably cross-talented and dedicated group of staff and laypersons, moving strategically with focus and grace, seeking to make a difference for our congregation and for the broader community. Say yes to this opportunity to be of service. say yes to serving on the Board of Trustees.
In my years of leading here at River Road, I have never once felt alone, but connected to a call that not one of us holds, but all of us hold together. And there are so many ways to build that call, so many ways to give time and talent and, yes, treasure. And as this offertory music plays, blesses us once again, I invite you to give as you are willing and able. I am told that the text to give information will be right below me, 73256. You can also mail us a check the old-fashioned way. You can give from your heart in any number of ways for this place which we create together.
So many things we can't control, so many hurts that happen every day, so many heartaches that pierce the soul, so much pain that won't ever go away. How do we make it better? How do we make it through? What can we do when there's nothing we can do? We can be kind, we can take care of each other, we can remember that deep down inside we all need the same thing. And maybe we'll find, if we are there for each other, that together we'll weather whatever tomorrow may bring. Nobody really wants to fight. Nobody really wants to go to war. If everyone wants to make things right, then what are we always fighting for? Does nobody want to see it? Does nobody understand? The power to heal it is right here in our hands. We can be kind, we can take care of each other, we can remember that deep down inside we all need the same things. And maybe we'll find, if we are there for each other, that together we'll weather whatever tomorrow may bring. And it's not enough to talk about it, not enough to sing a song. We must walk the walk about it. You and I, do or die, we've got to try to get along. We can be kind, we can take care of each other, we can remember that deep down inside we all need the same things. And maybe we'll find, if we are there for each other, that together we'll weather whatever tomorrow may bring. And maybe we'll find true peace of mind if we only remember we can be
Describe or imagine a world where you are loved, safe, and valued. This is the central thesis for a book that has been near and dear to my heart for several years, a work simply titled Black Imagination. This text is a compilation of diverse Black voices, young, disabled, queer, neurodivergent, houseless, incarcerated, many Black voices speaking to three themes. First, what is your origin story? Second, how do you heal yourself? And third, the previously mentioned world where you feel loved, safe, and valued. The birthplace of this text comes from the curator of the book, Natasha Marin, who in 2016 launched a project called Reparations, which in her words, encouraged people of color to make requests for what might bring about some present-day repair or healing for race-based trauma and financial inequality. And likewise, white-identified allies were invited to answer the call in a variety of very concrete ways. Within 6 months, this project had reached hundreds of thousands of people worldwide via social media. People were engaging in this project in ways that she couldn't even have imagined previously. She describes the magnitude and the generosity and the need, but also the intensity. Because even as people were thoughtfully engaging in the project, she was also receiving volumes and volumes of hate mail and hate messages filled with racial slurs, death threats, accusations, all kinds of things. And just the very act of her using the word reparations made her a target for heinous and racist behavior from all over. And it became all-consuming for her. She found herself with no time for her family, no space for her spirit, surrounded by negativity and racism and being broken down at every turn. Although this project, this campaign that provided direct person-to-person contact and support, it was important. And it was a major part of the renewed mainstream conversation around reparations at that time. But she herself was worse for the wear. So she took a break. And as she says, she had to make reparations to myself for my reparations project. So she dove into the minds of Black creatives, artists, futurists, those architects of a world that could be. She wrapped herself in joy for a world not yet realized. And from that place of joy and imagination, the project, Black Imagination, was born. I wanted to deliver a sermon today about broad picture social justice, about all the issues and how they're connected, something about intersectionality and how we all need to work together, how everything is interconnected. On my mind was also the role of spiritual grounding and community, how we can be rooted in our principles. But in the writing of that sermon, I realized there was something else on my heart. So I Googled one question: why is social justice so hard? Why is social justice so hard? And the results varied. There were news articles from local papers all the way to the New York Times about the semantics and the complications of the very term social justice. There were at least 3 results that simply listed and briefly defined the top social justice issues right now, and they actually turned out to be advertisements for academic programs at universities. There was one that said 10 reasons why social justice is important, and the very next article claiming, survey, social justice divides Americans. And I realized what was heavy on my heart, that I felt discouraged. I could research and write a sermon about intersectionality and social justice versus liberation, about how it's all interconnected, how we need to work together, how we need to generally be nicer to each other. But honestly, I've written those sermons. I've been sharing those sermons with you all for 4 years and trying my best to minister to this great transition we're feeling in all of our social justice-oriented organizations. This transition from multiple single-issue focuses wrought with competition and power moves to movement rooted in community care and heart-centered wholeness. I've been trying, and I feel discouraged because I am tired, and social justice work is hard. It's hard because often we're trying to dismantle systems of oppression through use of those same systems of oppression. It's hard because we're aiming to dismantle white supremacy culture by using tactics of white supremacy culture. And I bet I'm not the only one that's tired. Our movement spaces are filled with tired and discouraged people who genuinely want to make a difference, and all we can seem to offer each other are outdated, worn-down tools and systems that harm each and every one of us. And you might be wondering to yourself, who is the we you're referring to, Reverend Amanda? Who's this us? And I'm referring to all of us. All of us in spaces where transformation is meant to happen. All of us who dedicate ourselves to faith communities and political movements, change-making spaces. All of us who give a damn about the world that we live in. We're tired. And there's so much to care about. There's so much that's breaking our hearts on a regular basis. There are the big, larger categories, the smaller issues within, the even more niche movements that spin off from that. There's large-scale political action. There's the local level. There's the even more micro level of that. There's organizational and institutional. There's personal. There's interpersonal. There's activism and there's organizing, and those are two different things. There's giving, there's doing, there's witnessing, there's funding, there's the past, there's the present, there's the future. And bless your heart if you're any type of leader in any of these spaces, because you have to figure out how to hold those pieces and work together and when and how and where and why. It's discouraging. My friends, my siblings, my beloveds, we are tired, and that's okay, because social justice is hard. But here's the gag. Here's the good news and also the bad news, one and the same. Social justice is still our work to do if we so choose it, and we have chosen it. We belong to a faith rooted in values and principles that guide us to a world where we and others are loved, safe, and valued. So how do we hold this without being consumed by heartbreak and overwhelm? I turn to the prophetic voice of Howard Thurman. He writes, "Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. Despite the dullness and barrenness of the days that pass, if I search with due diligence, I can always find a deposit left by some former radiance. But I had forgotten. At the time, it was full-orbed, glorious, and resplendent. I was sure I would never forget. I had forgotten how easy it was to forget. There was no intent to betray what seemed so sure at the time. My response was whole, clean, authentic, but little by little, there crept into my life the dust and the grit of the journey. Details, lower level demands, all kinds of cross currents, nothing momentous, nothing overwhelming, nothing flagrant, just wear and tear. If there had been some direct challenge, a clear-cut issue, I would have fought it to the end and beyond. In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed." So that's the first question we can grapple with. Where are our lives committed? And this is a question that must be felt on the macro and the micro levels. Where am I committed? Where are we committed? And yes, this has to do with purpose and passion and call and interest. And I cannot think of a wrong answer, mostly because this isn't a thinking question, but a feeling question. Where do we feel the most alive? Which brings us to our second inquiry. What do we have to give? For some, it might be time, or money, or organizational skills. Some folks are more adept at charts and planners and executive functioning. Some are thinkers and dreamers. Some are creatives. Some are marchers, and some are quick with a pen. What can we give? To our passion, to our purpose, to one another, to the causes which tug at our hearts, the issues that aren't merely issues, but matters of life and death for so many people. What can we give? And the only caveat here is that we have to be okay with what we can give, and we have to be okay with what others can give, because it's often not the same, and it often changes. And we have to accept that. What can we give? Our third practice is to keep in touch with who we are. The three central investigations in the text, the earlier text, Black Imagination, gives us a how to keep in touch with ourselves. What's our origin story? What does healing look like? What is a world where we feel safe, loved, and valued? It's asking us to reflect, imagine, remember, heal, repeat. I have a lot of origin stories in my own life which reflect different broad themes throughout my time, but perhaps my favorite origin story is my UU origin story that I've talked about before. The first time I attended a UU service, and I immediately felt like I belonged, not because of any programming, not because of any social justice issue, but because it was a space where I could be who I was in my fullness, where I could find faith community as not a Christian, as a queer person. I felt like I belonged in that space. I didn't fit any of the demographics of people who attend church on their own, and I definitely stuck out like a sore thumb at a Southern UU congregation, but I sat in that service and I experienced the spirit of life before I even had that language. And over time, I learned that healing could come from shared spiritual practice, and that being loved, safe, and valued was a two-way street, but a two-way street with me, and by that I mean my ability to receive that was in direct proportion to my ability to experience it. I have to hold to that origin story. I have to keep that alive. I have to remember that moment of my own high resolve. And finally, what ties it all together? Grace. We need the biggest, most sturdiest, most durable bucket, and we must be committed to filling it day after day with as much grace as we can possibly muster. Grace even when we're mad or frustrated or tired. Grace with each other, but first and foremost, grace with ourselves. Grace that roots us to our commitments, that keeps us in touch with ourselves. Grace that reminds us of our highest resolve when we can't remember on our own. We cannot do it without that kind of amazing grace. I can't tell you how many social justice efforts I've been a part of over the years that seemingly went nowhere. And in my early adult days of being a social worker, I can't tell you how many families and individuals and systems seemed almost the same or actually went back in time regardless of my effort. And if I don't have any grace about that, I can easily spin a narrative that none of it matters, that my efforts don't matter, that it's not going anywhere. I can slip into nihilism and pessimism, and sometimes I do, but I also need grace for that. Through grace, I understand that movements rarely fall apart, but they transition and transform into new things, new systems, new projects. Grace also shows me that people are forever impacted by the work that we do in these spaces, that each one of my comrades that I protested with night after night in the streets of Oakland in 2014 and 15 are forever molded and shaped by who we were and what we were doing and what we shaped together. Grace also reassures me That as a social worker, my willingness to see beyond people's economic status, criminal record, how they were different from me, their histories with addiction, and all of that, it allowed me to fully connect with my clients and treat them as equal humans. And I might have been the positive person in their life that day, giving them another chance to wake up and do it all over again. Grace brings me back to reality. That we are complex and flawed and we struggle, but we also live. We are organic and breathing and changing, and every day we wake up to face it over and over, and we are alive in this. Even those who didn't make it with us today, even those who are not here today, and there are so many, they live through us. That's the grace that ties it all together. So yeah, social justice work. It's really hard. And sometimes it makes no sense. And I would have loved to have given you a neat, tidy little sermon about it today, but I'm too tired for that. So I share with you instead my highest resolve, my why. Because we deserve it. We deserve our shot at a world where we each feel loved, safe, and valued. Every part of history has paved the way for each of us to come together today in this moment and make our mark on this world. And it is the honor of my life to do it at this moment in time, rooted with a faith community which values justice, worth, and dignity. And even on my tiredest days, I still do believe that. We are the ones we've been waiting on. May it be so. Ashe, and blessed be.
My body gets tired. My body hurts. My body is broken, but my spirit journeys on. My mind gets tired. My mind hurts. My mind is broken, but my spirit journeys on. My heart is tired. My heart hurts. My heart is broken, but my spirit journeys on. My life is tired. My life hurts. My life is broken, but my spirit journeys on. My spirit journeys on. My spirit journeys
What we do in this community together could not happen without this village of people who show up time after time after time to make this happen for us and with us. Of course, this morning our hearts are bursting with gratitude for our musical guest, Arlene, who's blessed us with some of her own music, her own creation. Of course, our people and our tech who make our sound and our lights happen. Schwei for providing such beautiful arrangements this morning. We are blessed beyond measure in this community. And as we move into this time, into the week, and into the days ahead, as tired as we may be, as broken as we may be, we know that our spirits journey on. And the blessing is that we get to do that together. May it be so. Go now in peace.